Alright, so today we're going to learn the basics of HTML and CSS and how to make a website like this demo site I have pulled up on the screen right here. And obviously it's not the best looking thing out there, but it will get you the basic idea of how HTML and CSS work, and from there you can go on your own and figure out how to make exactly the website that you want to make. So, to begin, we're going to open up our preferred IDE. It can be whatever you want. I use Sublime Text, but you could use Notepad and that would be perfectly fine and just be a little annoying. And then what you're going to do is you're going to create a file called index.html in whatever directory you want to host your website in. And the reason it's called index.html and not anything else is because that's what tells the server to actually serve this as your main page whenever you type in your root domain. So basically, if you go to example.com, it'll take you to the index.html file there and not just a random other HTML file. So once you have that file created, you're going to type in this template code right here, and this is the root code of all HTML files. You'll see every website you see starts with this. So what this is right here, this doc type, tells the browser that you're going to be expecting an HTML file, not a PDF file, not a TXT. Just tells it that it's actually a website that you're getting served and how to process that information. And then these HTML tags right here, that encapsulates everything else inside of your website, the code for it. And it basically just tells it, hey, this is where you read the code. This head right here stores information such as the title and the icon and such, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But what we're worried about right now is the body right here, which contains all of the meat of your website, which is basically this header right here, this header, this image, all this stuff is all contained in the body. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and full screen here, and the first thing we're going to do is make this header right here that says super cool example site. So you're going to go into your body and you're going to create an H1 element. And by doing so, you're going to make bracket H1, and then to close element, you do the same bracket with a slash, a forward slash right here. And this H1 stands for header 1. It's the biggest header there is in HTML. There goes down, there's H1, H2, H3, etc. And they get increasingly smaller in font size, basically. So then we're going to say, like we did there, super cool example site. And then that's going to be that. We'll save the file, go to our website. Right now it's blank. Refresh, and we have this super cool example site. Great. We actually know how to put content on our website. So then from there, we're just going to let's make that picture section that we have. It says, look at this picture, and then there's a picture of a whale. So then what we're going to do here, we're going to make a new div. And basically a div is just a container for anything. It's just what you put the content. That's how you organize things into separate sections, basically. You can see how this is one section right here, this picture thing where it says this is a picture of a blue whale, and then this was with the darker gray background right here where it says look at this link, it's a cool link, blah blah blah. That's a separate section, and those are two separate divs which you will see how to make in 1 second. So you go in here, you make the div, and then let's make a header 2, which is just a slightly smaller header than the top one over there. And we're going to say look at this picture, like we did on this side. Look at this picture. Alright. Then below that, we're going to actually put the image itself. So the way we do that is we use an Img Element, and this is actually unique in that it doesn't have a closing. There's not /img, as you can tell. The autocomplete didn't even register it. It's just this one opening tag, and you type in the source, and then right here, mine is going to be an acid/image.png. But you can put in a link you found from Google here, and it'll display the image, or you can put in some other file that you have, some other directory. It's just telling you, it's pointing the HTML to where the actual image is. That's what you want to do. So you have that right there. That's going to be your image, and then right under it, let's make a little paragraph. That's what P stands for, P element. Just saying, what did it say on the website? Said this is a picture of a blue whale. This is a picture of a blue whale. Alright. So then we should save that. We reload. And look, there's this blue whale. Perfect. Okay. It even says the little paragraph down there. So after that, we're going to move on to create this link div. As I said before, it's a div. We're going to create this little section over here that just says, look at this link. It has a link that goes to some other page. Just random. It's whatever. Anyways, we're going to learn how to make that. So, sorry. Again, you're going to make another div. And then inside of it, we're going to put a H3, which is, again, an even smaller header. It's still a header, not a paragraph. As you can see here, this is slightly smaller than this, which is smaller than this. Anyway, in the header, we're going to put, look at this link. If I can type correctly. Look at this link. Okay. Then after that, we're going to put in the actual link itself, which is represented by an A tag, which actually means anchor. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the A, you're going to type in, click here, or whatever you want your link to say, and then to actually get it to point to the place, you're going to type in href equals, and then right here I'm going to use otherpage.html, which I've yet to create. But again, just like with the image, you can point to an actual URL on the internet and it'll redirect to that website, or you can do any other HTML file in any other directory as long as you point to it correctly. It'll just go to the given HTML file, basically. So then let's go ahead, make that new file, and we're going to save it as otherpage.html, and we're going to do our doc type HTML. Oh, it auto-completed stuff. And then we're just going to say just a P that says this is some other site. Alright. So then we have it linked to that page, which we just created, and it says click here. Perfect. So next we're going to just add that little P down there that says it's a cool link, you see. Again, that's like right here, the same with the picture. We just make a P element, and then we say it's a cool link. So that is done. Let's save our file, go back to it, and reload. And sure enough, there's this little section that says look at this link, click here, it's a cool link. And when you click the link, it takes you to some other site. So after this, now we're going to go back and look at the head. We're going to revisit that. Like I said, this contains information such as the title and the icon. And the way you're going to do that, let's set the title first. We just use a title tag. And then we just type in whatever we want to pop up here. As you can see, it says index.html right now. And that's not what we want. So let's just type in example site. Let's save that. Go back. Reload. It says example site now. And then to do an icon, you do a link tag, which can also be used to link a HTML file to a CSS document, which we'll get to in a second. But right now we're going to be using this to link to an icon to show in this little favicon right here. You see I have this random emoji picture I downloaded from the internet. And anyway, so to do this, we're going to say link type equals, and then we're going to say icon, or sorry, not type. Link rel equals icon, and then again we're going to give the href, which is the pointing it to the actual image itself, and we're going to use assets.favicon.ico, which is which I generated with a website that I'll link into the description. But basically, you can just put a PNG in there, and it'll generate you a small little icon file, and it also will, if you want to, generate you a whole list of icon files that are used for different devices to make compatibility better. But just for the sake of brevity, I'm not including all of these because that'd be like half the width, half the height of my code right now. So anyways, again, like the image tag, this doesn't actually have a closing tag because you're not containing anything in the link. So let's just go ahead and save this index.html, go back, reload our site, and look, there we go. That's our icon, our title, and then the content of our site. However, our sites still do differ a bit. As you can see, there are these colorings, there's this border, there's some sizing differences, some spacing differences. All this is not present in our site currently because we have not done any styling with CSS. So right now we're going to go ahead and do that. The first thing we do is we create a new file, and we're going to save it as example.css. And then before we even do any work in this file, we're going to go back to the HTML file and actually link the CSS file to it. So we're going to type another link tag up here above the icon one and say link rel equals style sheet. That's just telling it it's a CSS document that we need to look at, and we're going to style the page with it. And then we're going to say href equals, and then the path to your CSS file, which in my case is example.css. So then we save this, and then these two sites will be linked. These two documents will be linked. There's no difference right now, but we'll get to that right now. So to begin, let's change the font from this ugly little Time New Roman to something like Arial, because it kind of looks like Craigslist right now, and I'm not feeling it. We're going to go ahead and put an asterisk right here and some brackets, and what this says is we're going to select every element in the page. This asterisk, that's what it means. It means all. And then the brackets are where we put our styling. So we're going to say font family, and then we're going to say Arial. And the way this font family thing works is that we're going to have backups, so that if the device doesn't have Arial installed, we're going to go ahead and let's say we're going to use sans serif if they don't have Arial. But that shouldn't be a problem on my computer, at least, because I actually have the font in my browser, so it should work fine. So then we're going to save this, make sure everything's right, and this should reflect the change in our font. Alright, there we go. So the other style edits that we had, we changed our paragraphs, which is the P thing, so we can select things by their actual tag. So we can style all the P's, all the paragraph tags, and we're just going to say font size is equal to 1.75 EM. And EM, that means the height of the typeface that you're using. So I use that rather than pixels, which you can also use, because it varies based on the actual size of the font. So if you're on an iPad or something and the font is smaller than it would be on an iPhone, all your elements will resize accordingly too. So that's a little convenient. But again, you could set it straight with pixels and have it be a constant value all around devices. So anyway, we're going to set the font size to 1.75 EM, and that should make these P's a little bigger, and it did. So we got that done. Next, we're going to style the whole body, actually, and that means that we're just going to style everything all the elements in our page. And what we did on this site is we added a little margin, and we changed the background color to gray. And as you can see, there's a margin on the top, there's a margin on the right, on the bottom, on the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to say margin, and that'll be margin for all sides. You can specify for top, left, bottom, right, but we're just going to do all the sides right here. We're going to say it's 3 EM, that's a comfortable margin size. And then we're going to say set the background color to gray. And you can also use hex values here, but there are some built-in values like gray, lime, blue, etc. that CSS just automatically interprets into the hex. And so this should work right here. We should have a gray background and a margin around our body. And there it is, already looking better. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at IDs. So an ID is an element, is something you can add to a tag to give it a unique identifier, basically, so you can style that one single tag in your CSS. Like for example, if I just wanted to style this P right here and not this one, then I would give it a unique ID and style it here. So we're going to go ahead and do that for this main header right here. We're going to say ID is equal to main header, and we'll save that. And then here, the way you reference things with IDs is by using this pound, this hashtag sign, and saying the ID. So we have that, and now we're going to put the style. And what I want to do here is simply set the text align to center, as you can see on the finished site. So we're just going to say text align center, save it, and then reload, and now it's centered. The next element we're going to style is we're going to actually style this picture to have that border that we saw in the finished page right here, the blue border. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the image, we're going to give it an ID. I'm just going to say whale picture, and we're going to save that, and then we're going to go back to the CSS and style this whale picture. And we're going to set the border to solid, which just gives it a solid border as opposed to like a dotted one or a dashed one. And then we're going to set the border width to 1 EM, and we're going to set the border color. And I have this hex color just copied over here, written down, but you can use any color you want, obviously. You can go online and do a hex picker, but we're going to use this grayish blue, which is 384894. And the way you do hex colors is by, again, using this pound sign. So then we should save that, and then we should get a border. There we go. So looking more similar over here. The next thing we're going to style is this link header right here, the one that says look at this link. So we're going to give it its own ID, and we're going to say, let's just call it link header. Save that, go back to the CSS, style the ID, and we're going to just give it a little bit of padding on the top and the bottom. And what padding is, the difference between padding and margin is the distance, the spacing on the outside of the element, and then padding is the spacing on the inside. You can actually see this if you do inspect element, and you see this right here. This is padding right here, and then the whole body, it has this margin over here. If I could actually select the body, there. It has a margin of 48 pixels or whatever EM we set all around it. But this link thing here, right here, has a margin of 18,175. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in this link header in the style, we're going to say padding top is equal to 2 EM, and we're going to say padding bottom is equal to 1 EM. And that should put those spacing changes into effect. And there it is. It's a little bit more spaced out. And just like in the code, it's higher on the top. The margin is larger on the top than on the bottom. And that's reflected here, as you can see. So then the next thing we're going to style is actually we're going to look into classes. So a class is kind of like an ID, except you can apply it to multiple tags, but regardless of their type. So I could give a class to this P and also have it on this H1 and this div, and that would work just fine, and I could style all those things the same way in my CSS. So what we're actually going to do, we're going to create a class called dark background, and we're going to give it to this H2 class right here, the look at this picture, this H2 tag, my apologies. We're going to say class equals, we're going to say dark background. And then we're also going to give it to this secondary, so the second div right here, we're going to say, again, class equals dark background. Save that, and then to actually style classes, we go and we use a period instead of a pound sign, and we say the class name, so it would be dot dark background, like your type. So then we're going to go ahead and style that, and what we're going to do, we're just going to set the background color to, again, this is another hex value I have written down, but you can use whatever you want. It's 51545F. And that should do it. There we go. We have all of our CSS changes implemented on the actual website. There's one last thing that we got to do, and that is, as you can see right here, the blue is not actually blue as it is on the finished site, and this whale image is not reaching its full width. And what we can do, instead of actually styling it in the CSS to achieve these effects, since this is like a one-time thing, it's not something you're going to use, it's not something you're going to apply across multiple elements, so the cascading nature of CSS isn't necessarily useful here. We're just going to put a span around this blue, and the difference between a span and a div is that a span is a container, but it's actually inline and not block line. So you can see like these two divs are stacked, but if they were spans, they would be next to each other left and right. So we're going to keep the spacing, we're going to say this span, and we're going to say the style. We can actually just put CSS code in the HTML file itself, and we use this style thing. And this isn't recommended for things where you can use IDs and classes and style them by their tags, but for things like this, where it's just a one-time use and it's not really necessary to go into the actual CSS, it's acceptable. So what we're going to do, we're just going to change the style, and we're going to say the color is blue, and the font weight is bold. So then once we save that, we should reload, and then we have our blue whale in blue and bold. So then, oh, whoops, we didn't close the tag. That should fix it. There, now it's just blue and bold. So then the last thing we got to do is fix the width of the whale image, and the way to do that is we just go into the image and we use a width attribute and we set it to 100%. And that means that it'll take up 100% of the width of its parent container, which is this div, which will actually have a 100% width of the screen as it happens. So we're going to save that, reload, and there we go. Our site is finished. I hope this helped you learn the basics of HTML. I know it's not comprehensive. There are some things that you have to look up yourself and figure out, but you should know how HTML works in general, and you can look up specific tags and figure those out and go from there. I'll put some links to some resources in the description, plus the ones I mentioned previously in the video, and that should be it.